What is up, guys? This is Tower number 9. I'm coming to you live with a new video here. This time I actually remembered to turn on the volume, though I think I may have a little bit there where I was muted. Um, a stream a viewer, Silverback5225, pointed out that my previous stream of this, I had accidentally not plugged in my microphone and there was no volume as I was explaining this platform. So we are redoing the stream here with the volume actually on. Luckily it was early on and I didn't get too much cut off. Big shout out to Silverback5225 for pointing that out. All right, so this is going to be a little different than my normal streams. What I'm doing here is I want to showcase a new site for playing Flesh and Blood online and remotely that is much better than the previous options that have been available for this, in my opinion. So for a long time, when I was getting into this game, I believe it was in 2020 during the coronavirus pandemic. A lot of events were closed. A lot of people were unable to play Flesh and Blood in the Flesh and Blood, or at least unable to do so safely and prudently. So we started having a lot of people that were looking for other options. And there was Untap.in, there was Tabletop Simulator, there were events organized via webcam. There were a lot of different options for online play. However, a new option has come out recently called fleshandbloodonline.com. In my opinion, it is actually much better than the previous options that existed in this space. And I want to do this video here just sort of explaining this and promoting it to the viewers because I think it actually is the best way to play Flesh and Blood from your computer. Now, I want to say, as a caveat, Flesh and Blood, obviously it's a physical card game and it's designed to be played in person. I'm not saying that you should only play Flesh and Blood using an online site necessarily. I'm not saying that this should replace going to tournaments and engaging with your local community. But I think a lot of people have found that they would like to be playing more Flesh and Blood than they can easily get access to just in terms of local meetups and armories and stuff like that, and have found playing online to be really useful. I know there's also people who have found it to be useful for testing. Like you want to test against some friends who you know are good at the game but don't live near you, so you can play an online game or a webcam game or TTS or whatever. Well, Flesh and Blood Online, I think, is the latest evolution of that. It's actually been out for a few months, and I want to be honest with you, I've been aware of this for some time, but for a while I didn't think it was necessarily all that good. For a while, if someone had asked me, what do you think of Flesh and Blood Online? I would have said, I think this is, I don't know exactly what I'd say, but maybe, I think this is promising. I think this is something that is interesting, but right now I think it's a little janky. I think there's a bunch of bugs and problems. I would recommend using Tabletop Simulator over it. But no longer, guys, because this platform is now, in my opinion, the best option available, and I'm going to get into some of the reasons why here. Okay, so Flesh and Blood Online, the way you access this is the first reason that I think this platform is so good. Tabletop Simulator, you have to buy the game Tabletop Simulator, you have to download a mod or potentially multiple different mods depending on what exactly you're trying to do, and you have to get that running on your computer and host it and so on. It's a lot more intensive in terms of system resources and so on than some of the other options. With this one is right here in your browser. This is not a game window, this is just a normal Google Chrome window. And all you have to do is type in fleshandbloodonline.com. It will take you to this main page. There are options up here, like you can make an account and stuff. I have an account personally, but you do not have to make an account. That is not mandatory. You can just go to the browser and just jump into a game quickly if you want. And so the way this interface works is it's going to show you, here are some games in progress that I could join as a spectator. Here is where lobbies would show up if they're being hosted. This window's kind of been open for a while. I should probably refresh it if I actually want to see any active lobbies. And then if you want to create your own lobby, you can just make one here. Over at the side, there's this sideboard promoting this goofy event they have where you can, they're going to track who can win the most games with maximum sigil of Solace Blue. But the core interface is right here. So the way this is going to work is there's a option for favorite decks. So you can just paste a deck link in here from FAB, another site that I think is pretty solid. And you can then hit this little heart icon if you want it to save as a favorite. So right now I have a Dorinthia deck and a Kasai deck for CC and Blitz here that are saved in my favorite decks. So let's say that I wanted to create a classic constructed game. I might type in I have selected my deck here, Uprising Dorinthia. I might say, give this game a title. It might just be CC testing or whatever. And then with respect to restrict by reputation, this is a feature that allows you to make it so that people who frequently are disconnecting from games or are otherwise otherwise doing undesirable things can be restricted from joining. So there's like a karma system in the game. And I'm just going to say no restriction. You can choose Blitz, Classic Constructed, Competitive CC is a format. It's not actually... I'm not sure that it's actually different from normal CC. Maybe it enforces the banned and restricted and living legend type stuff if you choose competitive, but I actually don't know. The main thing for this option is just like trying to get a game where the other player is going to have the same type of attitude that you're looking for. And then there's commoner as well. And then you can choose either a public game, a private game, or even a single player game. Now, I have not tried the single player mode. I don't know what that's like. For the purpose of this video, I'm going to do a private game here. So then you hit create game. And you get taken to this view. So right here, there's one tab where it has my equipment, so I can click on things to deselect them. And, if I mouse over this stuff, it's going to get a zoomed in view, just like you would get on some other platforms. So, you can click on things to select and deselect them. So, in this case, you can see this is my Dorinthia deck, so I have kind of a standard loadout for aggro matchups. Maybe I'm going to be playing against Dromai, so I'm going to remove Courage of Bladehold and use Find All Spring Tunic. Maybe I'm going to play against Kano, so I'm going to switch to a Null Rune 3 configuration here. And anyway, these are all things that you can do very straightforwardly, just right here in the browser. And then if you go to the deck, it's going to show you all the cards in your deck. So a sneak preview of my Dorinthia deck, guys, if anyone wants to see my exact deck list. I am participating in the Sigil of Solace Blue challenge, so there are max copies of Sigil of Solace Blue. That is not a card I would recommend for competitive play. But, so I can see my deck here, and, if I want to sideboard, like, let's say that I'm playing against Dromai and I want to optimize my build. I want to put these Command and Conquers in to potentially use to break Phantasm stuff. So I'm going to opt into these 3 Command and Conquers, and maybe I want to stay at 60, so I'm going to cut these Warriors Valor yellows. We're just clicking on these cards. Very simple, right there in the browser. Don't have to do anything complicated, and it lets you sideboard it. And so when someone joins, this is a private game, and I'm going to actually join from a separate browser instance to show this off. When someone joins, their hero will show up here, which will show you how you have to sideboard. So let's get over to that. We're going to... I have a side window here where I am going to... Oh yeah, this is a private game, so the way that this works is that it isn't available to join from that lobby interface that I was showing you earlier. Instead, what you're going to want to do is copy invite link here, and then just send that to the person that you're trying to get into the game. So then they can just paste that link in their browser, and they'll be joined right into your game. So I'm going to join. My Dorinthia will be faced by the mighty Bravo starter deck. And we will see what happens there. So as you can see, I have joined to the game, and this is, it automatically does a die roll, and it's going to determine who chooses first or second. So in this case, I won. So let's say, okay, I'm playing against Bravo. Let's say I'm going to go first. I'm going to equip Find All Spring Tunic, and we're going to put in those Steel Blade Shunt Reds, so that in the event that I'm getting hit by big crush effects, I can potentially ward them off with that strong defense reaction. So I can configure that very quickly. My opponent is looking at a similar screen. There's a ready button for the person who's not the host. So once they push that button, the host can then start the game when they like. So I'll hit the ready button there on the other window. And then over here, we can hit start. And this is what the game looks like in the actual game. So again, all of this is in the browser. This is not something complicated. This is not something that you're going to have to download any external program for. This is just a Google Chrome window. So right here in the browser, I can highlight different cards. So I'm looking at my opponent's equipment. Maybe it's been a while since I've played against Helm of Eisen's Peak. I want to see what that card does. I can highlight it and read it right there. It's going to give me a nice big card image to show what's going on there. Maybe, I want to highlight Anothos, It kind of shows the cards in this limited form where it's just going to be the art, so you can kind of recognize it at a glance. It doesn't show the full text, but if you need to see the full text, you can just highlight it and it will show you what's going on there. Similarly, you know, here's my deck. It says the number of cards left in deck right there, 56. Same for my opponent here. I think this is the banish zone, this is the pitch zone, this is the discard pile. And when I want to do, you know, when I want to do these different actions, all I have to do is just click on the relevant card, and you even see this little green highlight. Now, part of this is covered up by my face cam here, but over on this side of the screen, there is a thing that is going to describe just what's going on in the game, and also provide a little chat window. In fact, here, we're gonna move the face cam there so I can show you guys that window. So yeah, just right here, you know, if I want to say good luck, have fun, I can just type that in and it'll show up in the chat, except I spelled it wrong, so it says good uck, have fun. These things happen. And similarly, you're going to see the little information there. You're going to see the little information there. So I corrected that by saying luck. And then we're going to just show what playing a card looks like. So right now, let's swing Dawnblade. We're going to pitch Shunt. That's not really very correct. Once you do, it's going to show the layer here. Here's the attack coming in. If I want to play an instant, so I could play the Sigil of Solace blue here that I have, I could do that, or I could click this pass thing to not do that, or I could hit space. As you can see down here, it is showing that I pitched this. It's showing what's going on. I'm going to say pass, and then we see the Dawnblade attack here coming in at strength 3. The other player can then choose to block or not block. And they have a similar interface where they're just going to be clicking on cards to put them out there on defense. So, I don't know, let's say they're going to block like that, which is not particularly good, but they're going to block like that, and then they have the option to pass. Then, you know, we see here again, it's explaining what's going on. It's saying what cards they blocked with. You can actually highlight them right here from the game chat thing rather than from the field. That's especially useful if the cards are no longer visible because, you know, you've moved to the next chain link or similar, but you still want to see what exact card they blocked with. So then I'm going to have the option to choose a reaction. You know, let's play an Iron Song Response Red. Again, you know, this is going to show up as a layer here on the stack. I have the option to play more layers or pass. I'm going to pass. So it's coming in there, and we now see it's updated the damage totals. So I'm up to strength 6. My opponent is defending at strength 5. They're going to choose whether they want to do a reaction, and for this example, they don't. So we're going to just pass through here. I could play more reactions if I want. I'm going to pass through here. And we now see the resolution step, and am I choosing whether or not to use the refraction bolters? Again, I could play this instant. I'm going to not. I'm going to, do I want to destroy the refraction bolters to give the attack go again? The answer is no. And then I'm going to, as an action here, I'm going to play the Sigil of Solace, heal 1, and then it's going to give me an option to add a card to Arsenal. I'll do that. And then it automatically draws up my next hand, and it automatically draws a hand for my opponent, and it's now going to be my opponent's turn. All this stuff is automated, and the effects of the cards are also automated, which is a really useful feature because it makes it so that you don't have to do a bunch of stuff manually, and it makes it play a lot faster. So I'll show you guys what it looks like on defense. You know, let's say my opponent is going to come in with a simple Anothos swing, pitching a Drone of Brutality here, which is not a legal card anymore, but, you know, this is a demonstration game. And so on defense, you know, I can choose, do I want to block? How do I want to block? Let's say that I'm going to block with this Spoils of War, and then pass, and my opponent is not going to pummel me or whatever. He's going to pass. And as a result of that, you know, we see I have the option for reaction. Even though I don't actually have one, it's still giving me the option. This is useful because it prevents people from seeing, like, how long like, whether or not it automatically passes through is an indicator of what your opponent has in hand. You can just click pass or hit space to move through that quickly. My opponent's going to arsenal a card. And then I'll show you a little bit of the automation here. We're going to come in with the Dawnblade, pitch a blue overpower. The opponent's going to block, and then we're going to do a Stroke of Foresight here. So Stroke of Foresight has a kind of complicated card effect. If the defending hero has defended with a card from their hand this chain link, draw a card and then put a card from your hand on the top or bottom of your deck. And So we're going to do that, and we're going to hit pass, and then it has drawn this next card, which is a Steel Blade Shunt, and we have the yellow run through that was already in hand, and I just click top or bottom. Let's say that I prefer to have the yellow run through. So we're going to send the Steel Blade Shunt back to the top of the deck. And again, that was all automated. I didn't have to do that manually. The card effects are coded into the game, and this is really good in terms of just making it an accessible and easy to use platform. I think it really recommends it over some of the other platforms that are in the game. And so I'm not going to actually go through and do a full game with this. This is like just a brief overview of what's going on. But yeah, that's the basics of using the platform. One other cool thing, if you go up here, there's a stats button. So obviously this isn't a full game, so we don't have the full statistics, but this can actually be really useful for analyzing what was going on in the game. So it's going to show you a bunch of different cards that you played. You can highlight it to see what the card does, and it'll show you times played, times blocked, times pitched, and it even highlights these things in different colors based on what's going on. So like if you're pitching red cards, it's going to highlight that in yellow or red if you're doing that a lot, and if you're playing blue cards, it's going to highlight that in yellow or red, with the theory I think being that you typically want to be pitching your blues and playing your reds, so it just wants to kind of give you a warning that, hey, you weren't actually playing this, you were pitching it. You should think about whether or not this is the card that you most want in that slot or similar. You can use this to analyze your build after the fact. These stats, again, not going to be very meaningful for this game, but you can look at these and see, how much damage have I been threatening, how much damage have I dealt. It doesn't have it here because the first turn's omitted for the first player, and it's not going to show it to me until after the turn ends, I believe. But, similarly, you can look here and be like, how many cards am I playing? How many cards am I blocking with? How many cards am I pitching? How many resources did I use? How many cards did I have left at the end of the turn? And just use these sorts of things to evaluate how exactly that works. So that's the basics of the Flesh and Blood online interface, guys. And I want to just say big shout out to the people who made this platform. And I think this is, there's some more advanced options you can go to here. So you can talk about when you want to be holding priority. You can talk about there's like different in-game themes. So this is the normal one, but there's a dark mode, there's a plain mode. There's a manual mode you can go to if there are bugs. I don't actually know what the accessibility mode is. There's different aesthetic options for the card backs. But this game has a bunch of different stuff going on, and it's a very cool site in my opinion. I think that it is probably the best. I think it is probably the best site available for playing Flesh and Blood online right now. And I have to say, I really think that if you're using Tabletop Simulator, if you're using Webcam, if you're using some of those other platforms to play online, I really invite you to go to fleshandbloodonline.com and give this a try. I think that it's doing a similar thing to those platforms, but I think it is easier to use. I think that it has a lot of automation that can really help out and streamline the process. And I also think that the lobby system makes it really easy to find a game. So like right now, there's this lobby up, and I could just click join game right now and get in this game. I don't have to coordinate with someone on Discord. I don't have to get into a voice channel. I don't have to do any of that. If I want a game on Flesh and Blood Online, all I have to do is just create a public lobby and just wait for somebody to join. It'll play a little chime when they join. I can do the sideboarding and stuff, and we're off. And that ease of use hugely recommends it over the other platforms. I think that, I've played on Tabletop Simulator a fair bit, but there's this extra layer of social overhead that comes from having to coordinate someone to get into voice with you and talking to people who are hanging out in whatever channel, going on Discord and typing looking for game and so on. And with Flesh and Blood Online, it's all in the browser. All you have to do is go there. You can see the public games. You can join from this screen immediately if you want, or you can go and create a new game of your own and just wait for somebody else to join. You don't have to mess with other layers. It's all right there in the site. So I think this is a really cool site. Now, I also want to say, this is not an official platform. This is not something that is an officially sponsored thing. from Legend Story Studios. This is not something that is being done by the company. It's an unofficial fan project. You know, if in the future Legend Story Studios says, hey, we don't want you guys to be doing this, this might well be taken down. That's their right if they want to do that. But I personally think this is a great way to play the game, to test out different decks, and to get more engaged with Flesh and Blood, do that competitive testing and refinement without being in a store in person. Like I said earlier, doesn't replace going to a store in person. I think that people should still be going out there and playing in tournaments if they want to, playing in just local meetups, going to that draft, going to that armory event, doing things like that. But if you're in a situation where it's unsafe, or the nearest store is really far away, or you're sick, or you just don't have events coming up of the type that you're looking for, this can be a great option in order to get some Flesh and Blood games in and just get out there and get in the game. So yeah, that is Flesh and Blood Online, guys. Very simple program in terms of ease of use on our end. Big kudos to the developers who have created a site that is, it involves a lot of complicated coding. It's much more difficult to make this than it is to make a TTS mod. I was actually looking at trying to make a site like this myself at one time, and I just, I sort of just balked at it because of the complexity. But the people who went and made this themselves, big shout out to them. I think this is an excellent site. And I hope that other people are going to be using it, and that actually this will hopefully become kind of the standard for Flesh and Blood online play. And so the reason that I say that is simply that I think it is much better than the alternative platforms for playing online. And I think that it is it has the potential to grow even further, because there's a Discord server for this game. For specifically this site, and the developers are very active on Discord. There's people who put in their bug reports or feature requests and stuff, and the people who are doing that are able to say whatever they want, and the developers actually read it and implement changes. I myself have encountered some bugs on here. It's not a flawless platform, it's still early, but I've encountered some bugs on there, reported them on Discord, had them be fixed and put out onto the site very quickly. So it's really an impressive situation, in my opinion, and it stands to grow and be even more impressive in the future. And yeah, this is now the site that I would recommend for playing Flesh and Blood on your computer. And I think it has a lot to recommend it over the other sites, and I recommend that you guys go and check it out. So yeah, fleshandbloodonline.com. That's going to about do it for this video. I'm going to be hanging out in chat for a little bit in case anybody has any further questions. But yeah, fleshandbloodonline.com. Check it out, guys.